Meet Chris. Chris is 30 years old, and this morning, something quietly historic happened in his life. He opened his brokerage app, looked at the balance, and for the first time ever, it had six figures in it. $100,000. He didn't win it. He didn't inherit it. He didn't catch a lucky coin or a hot stock. He built it, one boring paycheck at a time, over about 6 years. And here's the strange part. Chris feels like he just finished something, like he crossed a finish line. That feeling is the most dangerous thought he will have all year, because $100,000 is not a finish line. It's an ignition switch. It's the exact moment the engine he's been pushing uphill by hand finally turns over and starts pulling on its own. What Chris does in the next 90 days, not the next 90 months, the next 90 days, will decide whether that 100 grand becomes $2 million or whether he quietly hands it back and starts over. And most people, the overwhelming majority, do something in those 90 days that destroys it. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly what they do, why your own brain will beg you to do it too, and the boring, unglamorous move that turns $100,000 into the last money you'll ever have to make alone. Charlie Munger, Warren Buffett's partner, one of the sharpest financial minds who ever lived, was once asked for the single most important milestone in building wealth. He didn't say 1 million. He didn't say 10 million. He said this: "The first $100,000 is a bitch, but you gotta do it. After that, you can ease off the gas a little." Sit with that. The man who helped build a $500 billion company said the hardest dollar you will ever earn is somewhere on the road to your first 100 grand. Not because 100,000 is a lot of money. In the scheme of a lifetime, it isn't. But because it is the threshold where the entire game silently flips. Below it, you are the engine. Every dollar of progress comes from your sweat, your paycheck, your discipline. Above it, the money starts doing a share of the work. And that share only grows. By the end of this, you'll know why your second 100,000 arrives 34% faster than your first. The three specific things people do the moment they cross this line that quietly blow it up, and the exact playbook for the 90 days that matter most. This is the real math on the most important number you'll ever hit. Let's get into it. Let's prove Munger with cold numbers, because this is where it gets beautiful. Chris saved about $1,000 a month and earned a normal 8% along the way. Watch how long each stretch took him. To go from $0 to $100,000? 6 years and 5 months. 6+ years of grinding, of saying no, of watching the balance crawl. That's the bitch Munger was talking about. Now watch the next stretch. To go from 100,000 to 200,000, same 1,000 a month, same 8%. Takes him only 4 years and 2 months. He didn't save harder. He didn't earn more. The second 100 grand shows up 34% faster than the first, purely because the money he already has is now pulling on the rope with him. Here's why. The moment Chris crossed 100,000, that balance started throwing off about $8,000 a year all on its own, roughly $667 every single month, without him lifting a finger. Think about what that actually means. Chris didn't just save $100,000. He hired an employee who works 24 hours a day, never sleeps, never asks for a raise, never calls in sick, and quietly deposits $600 into his account every month for the rest of his life. That is what $100,000 really is. Not a trophy, a worker. But let's be honest about what those 6 years actually looked like, because this is the part nobody posts about. There were no screenshots, no confetti. For most of that time, Chris's balance sat at numbers that felt almost insulting for the effort. 11,000, then 19, then 31. He watched friends finance boats and vacations while he ran the same boring transfer every payday into an account he wasn't allowed to touch. That's the tax on the first 100,000. And it's not a money tax. It's a patience tax, and it's brutal, because the compounding curve gives you almost nothing to show for the hardest years. Here's a number that should make you feel better about the grind. Only about 1 in 8 American households has $100,000 in actual investments outside the house they live in. Just getting to the number Chris hit this morning puts him ahead of the large majority of people around him, most of whom earn the same, or more, and have nothing invested at all. It doesn't feel like an achievement because the world is loud with people who look richer and are quietly broke. The six-figure investor is usually the calmest, most boring person in the room, and almost nobody knows he's winning. And there's a reason so many people quit before they ever get here. The first stretch of the compounding curve is emotionally rigged against you. For years, your contributions do almost all the work, and the growth is a rounding error. You put in 12,000, the market adds 400, and it feels pointless. So people conclude, investing doesn't really do anything, and stop right at the flattest part of the curve, never realizing the entire payoff lives on the far side of 100,000. They walk out of the movie in the first 10 boring minutes and miss the part where everything happens. Chris didn't walk out. He kept his hand on the same lever, month after unglamorous month, until the balance finally got big enough to pull back. And now it has. Now here's the part that breaks people's brains, so stay with me. There's a simple rule the pros use called the rule of 72. Take 72, divide it by your return, and you get the number of years it takes your money to double. At 8%, that's 72 divided by 8. 9 years. So Chris's 100,000, even if he never adds another dollar, becomes 200,000 in about 9 years. Then it doubles again. And this is where it stops being math and starts being magic. Watch the ladder. 100,000 doubles to 200,000. 200 doubles to 400,000. 400 to 800,000. 800,000 to 1.6 million. 1.6 to 3.2 million. Same doublings, every 9 years. But look at the size of each jump. The first double adds 100 grand. The last double adds $1.6 million. The exact same doubling that felt tiny at the start becomes life-changing at the end. And the only thing separating those two moments is time and the discipline to not interrupt it. And notice what's happening to Chris's invisible employee along the way. At 100,000, that worker earns him about 8,000 a year. By the time the balance reaches 200,000, the same 8% is throwing off 16,000 a year. At 400,000, it's 32,000, more than many people manage to save in half a decade of hard work, generated by money that just sits there. Chris's employee is quietly getting promoted every few years without him doing a thing. And somewhere on this ladder, the money starts earning more per year than Chris does at his job. That's the real finish line nobody talks about. Not a number, but the day your capital out-earns your labor. 100,000 is simply the on-ramp to that day. The first point where the slope is finally steep enough to feel. This is why the compounding curve looks flat and boring for years, and then, seemingly out of nowhere, goes nearly vertical. Chris is standing right at the bottom of that curve. Everything he's done so far has felt slow, because it was slow. But he just reached the point where the curve starts to bend. And that is precisely the moment his brain is about to sabotage him. Because here's what nobody warns you about six figures. The danger at $100,000 has almost nothing to do with the stock market, and almost everything to do with the person holding it. For years, Chris's money was too small to tempt him. $12,000 doesn't whisper anything. $40,000 is a nice cushion, But it doesn't change how you see yourself. 100,000 is different. 100,000 is the first number big enough to talk back. It says, "You made it. You can relax now." It says, "You're clearly good at this. Why not swing for more?" It says, "You've sacrificed for 6 years. Don't you deserve something?" Every one of those voices feels like wisdom. Every one of them is a trap. And the cruel timing is that they show up at the exact moment your money is finally ready to work for you. The moment when the single most valuable thing you can do is nothing. The people who get rich and the people who reset to zero often earn the same income, hit the same 100,000, and hear the same voices. The only difference is what they do in the 90 days after they cross the line. So let's walk through the 3 ways people destroy it. And I promise you'll recognize at least one of them, because your brain is wired for all 3. Destroyer number 1. They cash in the trophy. Meet Tyler. Tyler hit 100,000 the same week as Chris, and Tyler decided he'd earned a reward. Nothing crazy, just a nicer car. $40,000, financed, with a chunk down from the savings. Here's what Tyler doesn't feel. He didn't just spend $40,000. He spent that $40,000 and every dollar it would have become. At 8% over 30 years, that down payment alone was worth over $400,000 of future net worth. Tyler traded a $400,000 future for a car that'll be worth $8,000 in a decade. And the worst part is it felt responsible, because he could afford it now. $100,000 feels like permission. It isn't. It's a seed, and Tyler ate it. Destroyer number 2. They get cocky. Meet Jordan. Jordan looks at $100,000 and hears a different voice. You're obviously good at money. Index funds are for beginners. Imagine if you actually went for it. So Jordan starts trading options, or dumps a third of it into whatever's mooning this month. And for a while, maybe it even works, which is the most dangerous thing that can happen. Because now, Jordan is convinced it was skill. Here's the psychology the market is counting on. A big number makes you feel smart, and feeling smart makes you take risks you'd never take when you were broke. Jordan didn't build $100,000 by being a genius. He built it by being consistent. The moment he confuses the two, the market hands him a very expensive lesson, usually right around the time he's most sure of himself. Destroyer number 3 is the quietest, and it's the one that gets the most careful people. They coast. Meet Dana. Dana doesn't blow the money. Dana doesn't gamble it. Dana just exhales. The hard part's over. Munger said I can ease off the gas. So Dana stops contributing, figures the $100,000 will grow on its own, and redirects the old savings into a bigger life. And the $100,000 does grow. But watch the cost. If Dana keeps feeding it $1,000 a month for the next 30 years, it becomes $2.58 million. If Dana coasts and just lets it ride, it becomes $1.09 million. That's a $1.5 million difference for the crime of stopping too soon, 3 feet from where the curve starts to pay. Easing off the gas is Munger's reward for the second 100,000, not the first. And there's a 4th destroyer, the sneakiest of all, because it doesn't happen in a single moment. It happens by 1,000 cuts. Meet Priya. Priya doesn't blow her 100,000 on a car, doesn't gamble it, doesn't even stop investing. Priya just lets her life quietly inflate to match her growing balance. A nicer apartment, because she can afford it now. Dinner's out, because she's earned it. A subscription here, an upgrade there. None of it feels reckless. Each choice is small and defensible. But every dollar her lifestyle absorbs is a dollar that never reaches the machine. And worse, it permanently raises the cost of the life she now has to fund forever. This is lifestyle creep, the silent killer of six-figure earners, and it disguises itself as just enjoying the money you worked for. Here's the test that beats it. Every time your income rises, your investing rises first, and your lifestyle second. And by less. The people who compound fastest aren't monks. They just refuse to let their spending grow as fast as their income. Priya's balance still grows. It just never becomes the number it could have been, because she quietly gave herself a raise instead of giving it to the machine. 4 different people, 4 different exits. But all of them leak in the same 90-day window, the moment the number gets big enough to whisper. So here's the counterintuitive twist almost nobody talks about. All 3 of these people, Tyler, Jordan, Dana, are not stupid. They're not reckless. They did the hardest part right. They got themselves to 6 figures, which most people never do. They didn't lose their $100,000 to the market. They lost it to the mirror. To the story the number told them about who they now were. This is the real secret of the $100,000 mark. The number changes how you feel long before it changes what you can afford. And feelings, not facts, are what wreck a portfolio. Loss aversion makes you sell when you should hold. Overconfidence makes you gamble when you should coast. And plain old exhaustion makes you quit right before the reward. The market didn't get more dangerous the day Chris hit $100,000. Chris did. The number woke up a version of him that had been asleep while he was broke. And that version is the single biggest threat to his future wealth. Which means the entire skill of getting rich from here isn't financial. It's emotional. It's the ability to hit a milestone and feel almost nothing. To look at 6 figures and treat it like it isn't even yours yet. The wealthy aren't smarter than Tyler or Jordan or Dana. They're just harder to excite. And now, the universe runs its cruelest experiment, usually right after you cross the line. Imagine it's 6 weeks after Chris hit $100,000, and the market drops 30%. Overnight, the 6-figure milestone he ground 6 years for is worth $70,000. $30,000 gone in the time it took to read a headline. This is the moment that decides everything, and it has nothing to do with spreadsheets. Chris's brain is screaming that he's losing the achievement of his life, that he should pull the money out before it gets worse, that he was a fool to risk it. Loss aversion, the wiring that makes a 30% loss feel twice as painful as a 30% gain feels good, is running the show. And here's the trap. If Chris sells to stop the pain, he doesn't just lock in the loss. He fires the employee, resets the clock, and turns a temporary paper dip into a permanent hole he'll spend years climbing out of. But watch what happens if Chris does nothing. Historically, the market has recovered from every crash it has ever had, and then gone on to new highs. The investor who held didn't just get his $30,000 back. He kept every share he owned, including the ones his automated contributions bought on sale while everyone else panicked. The crash that felt like a disaster was actually the best buying window of the decade. The difference between the person who ends up with $2.5 million and the person who starts over is often one decision, made on one ugly afternoon, when the only correct move was the hardest one. Sit still. Your first $100,000 will be tested. The test isn't financial. It's whether you can watch the number fall and keep your hands off the switch. So what does Chris actually do the moment he hits it? Here's the playbook, and I'll warn you now, it's the least exciting to-do list you've ever heard. And that's exactly why it works. 1. Don't touch it. Mentally, that $100,000 is no longer money. It's a machine, and you don't dismantle a machine to buy a couch. Give it a name, wall it off, and pretend the balance is zero. The single most powerful thing you can do with your first 100,000 is forget it exists. 2. Keep feeding it. This is the whole ball game. Remember the numbers. Keep adding 1,000 a month, and you land at 2.58 million. Stop, and you land at 1.09. Every month you keep the pipe open is worth exponentially more now than it was when you started, because every new dollar lands on top of a base that's already compounding. Automate it so you never have to feel the decision. 3. Stay boring. You did not earn the right to gamble. You earned the right to keep doing the boring thing that got you here. Broad, low-cost index funds. No options, no hot tips, no, "I've got this figured out." The strategy that built your first 100,000 is the same strategy that builds your first million. Graduating to something fancier is how you graduate back to zero. 4. Widen the gap. From here, your raises are not lifestyle upgrades. They're fuel. When your income goes up, send the difference to the machine before you ever feel it in your checking account. The people who compound fastest aren't the ones who earn the most. They're the ones who let the least leak out. 5. Change who you think you are. You are no longer a saver trying to build a cushion. You are an investor who owns a $100,000 asset that pays you to own it. That identity shift is what carries you through every crash, every hot tip, every "you deserve it," because owners don't panic sell their machines. And here's the mechanism that makes all 5 of these stick, because willpower alone will fail you. Automate every part of it, so the discipline doesn't depend on how you feel that day. Set the contribution to leave your account the moment your paycheck lands, before you can see it or spend it. Turn off the notifications that tempt you to check the balance and tinker. Put the money somewhere just annoying enough to reach that you won't raid it on a bad Tuesday. The goal is to make the right thing automatic and the wrong thing require effort. Because on the day the market crashes, or the day the salesman shows you the car, or the day your friend won't stop bragging about his trade, you will not be a rational spreadsheet. You'll be a scared, excited, tired human being. So you build the system now, while you're calm, to protect you from the version of you that shows up later. The wealthy don't have more willpower than you. They've just left themselves fewer decisions to make. Now here's the part that has nothing to do with the balance and everything to do with your life. Because crossing 100,000 quietly hands you 3 things that don't show up on any statement. The first is a floor. For the first time, Chris has real ground under his feet. A cushion deep enough that a broken car, a lost job, a medical bill doesn't reset his entire life. And a person standing on solid ground makes better decisions than a person who's drowning. He can walk away from a toxic job. He can say no to bad money. The 100,000 doesn't just earn 8%. It buys him the ability to stop making desperate choices. And desperate choices are the most expensive things poor people are forced to buy. Let me make that concrete, because it's the most underrated benefit of 6 figures. The person with nothing in the bank takes the first job offer, pays the overdraft fee, finances the emergency at 29% interest, and sells investments at the worst possible time because rent is due on Friday. Every one of those is a tax on being broke, and it's enormous. The day Chris crossed 100,000, he stopped paying most of them. He can float a surprise expense without touching a credit card. He can wait for the right opportunity instead of grabbing the first one that comes along. In a very real sense, the 100,000 pays a second dividend that never shows up as a percentage. It makes every other money decision in his life a little calmer. And calm decisions compound just like money does. The second is options. Below 6 figures, your money is defensive. It exists to survive the next emergency. Above it, your money slowly turns offensive. It can start a business, back a move to a better city, fund a risk that actually pays. The capital stops being a life raft and starts being a launch pad. And the third is the one nobody expects. Proof. The most valuable thing Chris got the day he hit 100,000 isn't the money. It's the evidence, undeniable, 6-figure evidence, that he can do this, that the boring system works, that he is the kind of person who finishes. Because the first 100,000 is the hardest. Once you've done it once, you never fully doubt yourself again. You've seen the machine turn over. Now, you just have to not switch it off. Step back and look at the whole staircase, because it reframes everything. The first 100,000 is the hardest. It's almost all you, grinding, with barely any help from the money. The first million is the most important. It's the point where your investments can genuinely start replacing your income. And the first 10 million, strange as it sounds, is the easiest, because by then the machine is so large it practically builds itself, and your only job is to stay out of its way. Notice the pattern. Every milestone gets easier than the one before it, not harder. That's the exact opposite of how it feels from the bottom, where 100,000 looks like a mountain and 1,000,000 looks like a fantasy. But the person standing at 3 feet of net worth and the person standing at 3 million are running the identical play. Spend less than you make, buy the boring index, and refuse to interrupt the compounding. The only thing that changed is the size of the snowball. The hill does more of the pushing every single year. And that's why hitting 100,000 matters so much more than it feels like it should. It's not the destination. It's the moment you get off the hardest, steepest, most thankless part of the entire climb. And almost nobody realizes they've done it, because it's the exact moment they're most tempted to stop. And this is the quiet injustice of building wealth. The moment you deserve the most credit is the moment that looks the least impressive. Nobody throws a party for the person who hit 100,000 and then did nothing exciting with it. There's no post, no announcement, no applause for restraint. The world celebrates the guy who buys the car and quietly pities the one still driving the old one. Right up until, 15 years later, one of them is worth $2.5 million, and the other is still financing. Wealth is built in a silence that feels a lot like missing out. Every month, Chris keeps his hand off the switch. He's making a choice that looks boring to everyone around him and turns out brilliant only in hindsight. The hardest part of getting rich was never the math. You've seen the math. It's simple. The hardest part is being willing to look unremarkable for a decade, while the compounding does something remarkable. Most people can't stand it. They need the reward now, the proof now, the applause now, and so they trade the fortune for the feeling. The ones who make it are the ones who learn to find the boring deeply satisfying, who can look at a balance nobody is clapping for and feel the quiet thrill of an engine running exactly as it was built to. So let's go back to Chris, sitting there this morning, staring at 6 figures, feeling like he just finished something. Here's the truth: this whole video was built to hand him. He didn't finish anything. He just built the engine. And the engine is worthless if he shuts it off to celebrate. The 100,000 was never really about the 100,000. It was about becoming the kind of person who could get there. Patient, consistent, boring in the best possible way. And then having the discipline to stay exactly that person the moment the number tries to turn him into someone else. Tyler, Jordan, and Dana all became someone else. Chris's only job from here is to stay boring while $1 million quietly assembles itself behind him. And if you're watching this and you haven't hit 100,000 yet, if you're at 12,000 or 40 or 70, staring up at a number that feels impossibly far away, understand what this video is really telling you. The hardest, slowest, most thankless part of the entire journey is the part you're on right now. And it is temporary. Nobody's clapping for you yet either. The balance is crawling. The growth is a rounding error. And every instinct is telling you it isn't working. It is working. You're just still on the flat part of the curve, pushing the snowball by hand, exactly like Chris was for 6 years. Keep the transfer running. Keep your hands off it. The bend in the curve is closer than it looks. And everything you're grinding for lives on the other side of a number you will absolutely reach if you simply refuse to stop. Because getting rich after your first 100,000 isn't about doing more. It's about not undoing what you've already built. The hardest part is behind you. The most tempting part is right in front of you. And the wealth is hiding in the gap between the two. So the moment you hit $100,000, the real moment, when the balance finally shows 6 figures, and every voice in your head starts making offers, here's what to do. Nothing exciting. Don't buy the car. Don't chase the trade. Don't ease off the gas. Name the machine, wall it off, keep feeding it, and walk away. That's the entire secret. And it's so boring that almost nobody actually does it, which is exactly why almost nobody actually gets rich. The first 100,000 is the hardest money you'll ever make. Do not let it be the money you throw away 3 feet from where it finally starts to pay. You spent years pushing this snowball uphill. You just reached the top. All you have to do now is stop pushing and let it roll. If this changed how you see that number, if you finally get why the boring move is the rich move, subscribe to the GOAT formula and turn on the bell. We run the real math on the money decisions that quietly shape your entire life. No hype, no shortcuts, just the number that holds up. I'll see you in the next one.